It is a sunny and calm day in a town just south of Green Bay, Wisconsin, and the beautiful weather brings about a wonderful introduction to an amazing little girl, Paisley. Now, before we get started, since our recent visit to meet Paisley and her family in August, a spinal MRI revealed the heartbreaking news of an inoperable lesion on her spinal cord that is causing compression and has led to her losing use of her right arm, meaning her diagnosis has progressed. A new medication has been added to Paisley's treatment plan, and her family is hopeful this will provide Paisley several good years. With that being said, in this episode we are talking about Paisley with her parents Ashley and Joshua as they help us navigate her diagnosis, as well as let us in on who she is as a person. And a spoiler alert here, this young lady is incredible as a daughter, a sister, and friend, and we are beyond blessed to share her story with you today. This conversation is insightful and authentic and leads us in many contemplative directions. Leading the conversation is Josh Veach, our executive director of Go Shout Love, and please rate and review this podcast and share Paisley's story with everyone you know. It is a very simple way that we can all shout love for Paisley this month.
Well, Josh and Ashley, thank you for having us in your home. It's an honor to be here and get to meet your family. And so let's start by introducing the family.
Yeah.
So Ashley, I'll let you take this one and introduce us to your kids in order by age.
All right. So our first is Noah. He's 9 years old. And then we have Paisley, and she's 7 years old. And then we have our little, somewhat of a surprise baby, Brooksy. He's 10 months old. So.
Awesome. Okay, now I'm going to put you on the spot, Josh.
Okay.
Describe each of your kids using one word only.
Okay. Noah, probably emotional. Paisley, let's say fierce. And then Brooks is a baby, so like adventurous.
Adventurous and curious. Okay, Mom,
My turn.
your turn.
I think Noah is caring, and Paisley's strong, and Brooks is wild.
Keeps things fun.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So it's really fun to see the dynamics of the three, and even hearing them talk about each other and how they've interacted. And so, how would you describe, Mom, the relationship that Paisley has with her siblings?
Well, Paisley and Noah are 2 years apart, so they love each other. They're like best friends, but they also show love like in fighting and like arguing. They're very competitive with each other. So like if one, I don't know, does something, how would I explain it? Like if one does like throws a ball so far, Paisley will be like, well, I can throw it like that too. So it's like, it's kind of fun watching how competitive they are. Sometimes it's like, okay, but Paisley with her little brother Brooks, she is like a little mama bear, protective and just loves him, and always wants to like feed him his bubbas, and now he moves a lot, so we have to be really careful where we have him with her. But before he would start moving, she was always just like cuddling with him and doing whatever, and she always wants to help with his baths and with his feeding, and wants to feed him, and yeah, it's like her little baby.
Yeah.
She even says that to her friends. This is my baby.
My baby Brooksy.
Yep.
That's awesome. So we've got some sibling rivalry kind of happening, and then some nurturing going on too. Mm-hmm. Awesome. And how would you describe Paisley's personality?
Silly, spunky, caring. She's like a one girl with all the personalities. You never know what you're gonna get with Paisley, but you're always gonna have a caring, just fun, sparkly girl.
Yeah, which probably contributes to her being able to be called fierce and strong.
Yes.
All those things combined.
Yes.
Give her a pretty good tool belt. Tell us a little bit about what Paisley loves to do the most. What puts the biggest smile on her face?
Probably playing with her stuffies or her dolls. She loves she's just like, I think, like a natural born nurturer. I don't know. She just, anything she can take care of, she will.
Yeah.
Animals, Barbies, dolls, stuffed animals.
I have pictures when like they were littler, and Noah, like, I remember what going on. It was on like the memories on Facebook, but he wasn't feeling very good. He was maybe 4 or 5, so she was a couple years like, and she's just laying right next to him, just rubbing his head, and just you could tell like she just wanted him to feel better. And she's always, for as much as they fight, if anything's ever wrong with him or any of us, she's like right there, like, what's wrong? Like, are you okay? Like, what can I do to help you? Do you need a Band-Aid? Like, she's just very caring and loves to take care of everybody.
Yeah.
Band-Aid fixes everything.
Yep.
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 What has been the biggest surprise what has been the biggest surprise as a family that you guys have navigated in the last few years?
Brooksy. I don't know.
I mean, sure.
We
You
kind
can
of
take
just
these
go
off.
with the flow, really. I guess anything that comes our way, we're like, all right,
Yeah.
that's what we're going to do. So
Yeah,
I think we've had good moments, and we've had some really hard, sad, scary moments in the last couple years. And
yeah.
we're very close as a family. Even like our extended family, like our moms and dads and brothers and sisters, we just do it together.
Let's transition into that. You referenced some hard times in the last couple of years. Having Paisley have a diagnosis and being on a rare medical journey creates multiple levels of challenges, obviously. But take us back to the beginning of her story with you guys as a family.
Sure.
And her birth and kind of how that journey started.
Yeah. So when I was pregnant with Paisley, there was no indication anything was going on or anything. And I ended up actually getting like preeclampsia. So we had her about 6 weeks early. And when she was born, the doctors were like, she was born through a C-section. And when she was born, the doctors were like, I could hear them talking like, what is that? What is that? What is that? Referring to the spots on her skin. And I was like, what's wrong? What's wrong? And Josh is like, oh, she just has a few spots, like no big deal.
And this is in the middle of the C-section, right?
Yeah.
So you can't see anything. So you're all ears at this point.
Yep. And I heard her crying, so I knew she was like okay in that sense. But I was like, what is it? And he's like, oh, she just has some spots. It's no big deal. He was just trying to, I think, keep me like calm. And I just remember them like nobody knowing what it was, and they were like, they sounded concerned. And me being a nurse, I was like, something's wrong, right? So I was like in my head, like what it could be. And then finally, like she was doing pretty well, honestly, when she was born, being 6 weeks early, and he was able to bring her kind of by me really quickly. And at that time, I just saw like the cute little spots on her face, and we're like, oh, those are so cute, you know? And then she had to go to the NICU after that, just for some oxygen and feeding help, and just because of her age. But then later, when I was feeling better, I was just so scared of like what this was and not knowing and such. And I pretty much lied to the nurses and said, I can feel my legs. And I wobbled to the wheelchair, and Josh brought me down there, and I was just like really out of it. And I even told him, I'm like, I think you should hold her, not me, because I was just not alert and awake enough.
Sure.
But then we talked to the NICU doctor, and he said that if we were okay with it, they would send pictures down to Milwaukee, which is where the children's hospital is, to a dermatologist just to see what it might be. So that's kind of the start of that. And then I think it was probably like the next day, the dermatologist had responded and said what she thought through pictures what it was. And then she said that there is concern with how many spots she has, that it could be on her brain and spinal cord as well. And she just recommended to do an MRI when she was out of the NICU. And she said it's very rare, but it could be a potential just because she has so many. So she made it through NICU. Within 5 nights she was out, which was amazing for her age. And she was doing really well and eating and off oxygen. And then we went home, and it was like right after 4th of July. I think it was like even the next day, wasn't it? Or something.
I think it was like a day or two after.
We went down to Milwaukee and we did the MRI, and it was just like a swaddle one. It wasn't sedated. And initially they told us that they didn't really get good pictures. And we're like, okay. And they're like, but just go up to dermatology and you can talk to her and discuss like what to do going forward. And you can tell when the dermatologist walked in the room, something wasn't right. Like I just remember her face. And she's like, well, we did get images, not good ones, but enough to show that she has it on her brain and spinal cord, and she has hydrocephalus. And so like we were just like automatic, because we had done our research before going, like if it was on her brain and spinal cord, what would it be, and like kind of the statistics of it, and you know what you can find on it because it's so rare. And so like both of our hearts just like sank. And the dermatologist is like, normally we would have you go to the ER. Normally we would have you go to the ER to be admitted to the neurology floor, but she said, we're going to keep you here, seeing that she's a preemie baby. And then we were admitted to the neurology floor, and the neurosurgeon came in and kind of explained what we would need to do for the hydrocephalus part of it. And he was kind of like, I don't know if it's going to work, because he didn't know how her disease would affect the shunt. So it was kind of like he didn't know if that would be the right route. He said maybe we would have to go in and just drain it and see if that helps. He didn't really know. But then he recommended like the next day doing a sedated MRI to get better pictures. So then we did that, and after those images came back, he said that he felt that we should put a shunt in and just hope that it works. And so that's kind of what we did. And she did really well with it and was able to leave the hospital after a day or two, I think. I don't remember even how long, but...
So just a couple weeks even by the time that she got into the neurologist originally and had the shunt placed, is that right?
Yep. 2 weeks old.
Oh, wow.
She wasn't even actually supposed to be born yet.
Yeah. Wow.
Like, what was her actual birthday supposed to be, like end of June?
Yeah, end of June, something like that.
Yeah.
Whatever, 6 weeks from June 21st.
Oh, no, so it's supposed to be end of July.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then, so you got that diagnosis then, an official diagnosis at that first dermatologist appointment after they got the imaging. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay.
Then neurology pretty much was like, she has neurocutaneous melanocytosis. And then they kind of discussed with us like what we needed to watch going forward, because there's a lot of complications that can happen with her disease. One of them was hydrocephalus, which makes her symptomatic. Some children who have it are asymptomatic. They have the spots on their brain and spinal cord, one or the other, not always. It can just be on the spinal cord. It could be just on the brain. But some of them have like no complications really, and it's just there. But in her case, she's like symptomatic because she has the hydrocephalus. And so then he said we have to... Here you go. So then they said we would have to watch for seizures. They said it could grow and cause like compression on the spinal cord or in the brain. And they said that it can turn to cancer too.
She had no cerebellum.
Yeah, and she was also born with like barely any of her cerebellum, which is like the Dandy Walker, I think it's called Dandy Walker. They haven't really talked to us too much about that. But at the time they said, because they didn't call it that, I should say. They did talk to us about it. They said at that time that she might not ever walk, talk. And then they kind of said that, you know, chances of her living past the age of 2 was unlikely. But yeah, and then this year she started like in school. We started to notice, well, her teacher started noticing like she just wasn't like herself, and she was complaining of headaches a lot, and she was sick a lot at home with like her migraine, like headaches were happening a lot.
She would complain about her feet hurting a lot, and she'd be almost like falling down a lot.
Mm-hmm. And then, and like she was falling a lot, and even in like dance, she fell quite a few times, and I was like, oh, something's not right. And we talked to her neurosurgeon about it, and we're like, you know, this is what we're seeing. Like, something just doesn't seem right. And they're like, come down, let's do an MRI. And she has like a spot, even still at this point, like on her spinal cord. They called it like a syrinx. It's like a fluid-filled area. And they thought that... they didn't think, actually, that was, like, the cause of anything, just something to monitor, because it could, if it gets larger, cause, like, compression and stuff. And then they're like, so we'll just keep monitoring, and they referred us to a pain specialist, and then, of course, you don't get in for months. So we have to deal with these headaches and her basically just every other day being sick. Until we can see that. And I'm like, and then I was talking to like my friends that are nurses, and, you know, and to him, and I was like, something's not right. Like, this isn't just her migraine headaches that she's had her whole life. Like, this is something more. And so I just kind of kept pushing more and more. I was calling her pediatrician's office and seeing what they say. And then I was calling, well, actually, I wasn't even calling neurosurgery. I was talking directly to the nurse through like a charting system that they have. And I said, something's not right. And we did another MRI. And then they're like, at that point, they saw that the catheter of her shunt was barely hitting her ventricles. So they thought that it was like the pressure was building up, and then it would hit the catheter, and then it would drain. So when it was building up, she was sick, and then when it would drain, she was feeling okay.
Get
and then it
relief.
just kind of, and then it just was kind of happening. So they recommended doing a revision, and we agreed, and she was doing pretty well. We were hopeful that, you know, we would get at least another 6 years, or, you know, and then it was April 5th, because that date I think is always going to be in my head. She woke up not really feeling really well. We were back home after that surgery and woke up just not feeling really well. And I was like, okay. And she's like, I just want to sleep more. And I was like, okay, we'll just kind of keep an eye. And I laid next to her, and it was kind of getting to a point where I was like, she's sleeping a lot longer than like what I feel like would be typical for her, even when she's not feeling well. And so I went to try to like kind of wake her up, and she was not moving or anything, and she was pale as a ghost, and she was almost like lifeless, really. And I sternal rubbed her. Being a nurse, I knew to do that, and she kind of just like, you know, and I was like, okay. And then I was like, who am I? Do you know who I am? And then she wasn't saying anything, and I sternal rubbed her again, and all of a sudden then she's like, Mama. And I was like, okay. And then I yelled for him because he was down here. And I said, call my dad now, because he's retired and he's like 10, 15 minutes away. And I said, see if he can get here as soon as possible. And then he ran up and saw her, and like he froze. I was like, being a nurse, I had no idea what to do. I think that's why I yelled for him. Everything just like left. And he brought her down here, and she was sitting right there. And then like shortly after that, my dad showed up, and he saw her, and he's like, go. So,
You immediately recognize
Yeah.
something serious is
Yeah,
going
when
on.
I picked her up to bring her downstairs, it was like carrying like a noodle. Like she was just,
Mm.
there was nothing to her.
yeah.
Like it wasn't Paisley.
We rushed her to the hospital that's like more local here, and they did like a CT scan immediately, and unfortunately the doctor asked me if her ventricles were enlarged, which, I mean, I have at least the education to say yes, but it was kind of like, you're the doctor.
Mhm.
And it was just kind of like, oh, okay. And they had like no urgency with everything. Her heart rate was low. Like I think I was just like trying to trust these doctors, like they know what they're doing. And it was our first time of like having an emergency with her shunt. So we didn't know what to do or how emergent it was. And they wanted to transport her with an ambulance. So we waited a couple hours for them to finally come. And then they brought us down there, and she was like not responding. And by the time we got to Milwaukee, the doctors at Children's looked at us and were like sternal rubbing her. One even put, I think, like I don't know, it was a sharp object and like to her sternum to try to get any kind of response, pinching her, and eventually she kind of did like a little but I mean she was in surgery like very quickly. They did the consent, I think, like as she was going in. Like it was like rush. And yeah, that was really scary.
Even when we were bringing her just to the local hospital, I remember we took the highway, which is right here, and I remember looking in the back, like, is she gonna die? Like it was like I had never seen her. Like she was so, like, there was nothing, and I'm like, what do I do? Like you don't want to like get pulled over because that's just
Sure.
gonna be more time.
Right.
And I mean, that was probably the scariest I've ever seen her.
Yeah.
And
To get pulled over, just tell the cop.
yeah.
I was sitting in the back with her, just like holding her up because she just couldn't even like
Yeah.
be in a seat like decently. So I was like holding her up, and I was like reviewing in my head how to do CPR because I was like, I might have to do this on my own daughter, and it's been a while. So I was like, yeah, and I was like, reviewing how, but looking back, it was brain related, so I don't know.
And then
if it would have done
it was
anything,
frustrating
but-
too. She had mentioned all the time that it took in that hospital. Like they were communicating with Milwaukee, and then they're like, yeah, they're gonna have her come down. We're gonna have an ambulance take her down. And it was like 1:00, and that ambulance didn't take her down until like 2:30, 3:00. And like I always try to be just very like polite, respectful. Like I keep it, but I was just like, we gotta go. Like
There's a certain point where
yeah, like
you have a legitimate fear that you're losing your
yeah,
daughter,
yeah. Like
and no one's taking it as serious as they should.
Like
I
I was
that's
like
tough.
okay in the sense that like she was in a hospital and they had her hooked up, like they were monitoring her, but I was like, this is not okay. Like we need to go. We need to get her down there. Like we gotta go. And it just the fact that it took a while to get the ambulance in, and then Milwaukee from Neenah where we were, that's still like an hour and a half drive. So it's like okay.
And you said that was April of this year.
Yeah.
And that was the first time that you've had to have a revision surgery was because of this. Is that right?
That was-
yeah. So she had the revision surgery on the 1st, and then the 5th is when we rushed her down because her shunt was clogged.
Oh, this was
or
right after the
malfunctioned.
Yeah.
It
Okay.
malfunctioned.
So 6 years of the shunts working properly.
Yep.
Symptoms that identified that it wasn't draining as it should. Revision 4 days later. Right? Is that what you said?
Yep.
4 days later after the surgery is when this happens.
Yep.
And so what did they do then?
So they had to put an external drain in. So it's still like a drain that goes into the ventricle, but it's external. So they can see that it's working and draining. And they kind of look at the cerebrospinal fluid and monitor that as well. She ended up going to ICU after that. And when she started waking up, she wasn't able to move her arms or her legs. She was kind of just like limp like that, I guess. And that was scary to her. Even you could see it like in her eyes, like she was like, why can't I move my arms? But she was really out of it. So she really wasn't talking either, but you could just see like the fear in her face. And then I think it was occupational therapy, or was it physical therapy? occupational therapy came and started to do exercises with her, and then her arms started to kind of work but weak. And then a few days later, we had a therapy dog come see her.
Yeah,
because
McNugget.
she was his name was McNugget.
What a good
And that was like the first time I think we got any sort of smile or response or like any kind of anything, because she was just kind of just like meh. And I was like, okay. So the dog came in and she smiled and we're like, do you want to try to sit up? And so we sat her up in the bed and we had to help hold her because she couldn't sit, but holding her, she was able to sit. And she was petting the dog and just like loving up on this dog. And then one of the nurses was like, do you want to try walking the dog? And she's like, yeah. So we got her tiny little slipper socks on and we held her up, and she like slowly started to kind of just move her legs. We were holding her. She really wasn't like walking on her own or anything, but she was walking the dog.
Yeah.
And we went down the hallway and she was giggling and smiling, and that really helped her get back to like fighting again.
Yeah.
I guess fighting would be a good word in that moment.
I'm sure that was probably a big day for the two of you as well.
Yeah.
To
Yeah, I
kind
mean,
of see her being able to.
it's
get to
hard,
that
you know.
point.
You're in the hospital, all you can do is just sit there,
Yeah.
and you can't make her do anything. And she just had like no spirit, no will to do anything. I mean, and then the fact that like here comes this little dog, and that's like what got her going.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, well let's
Yeah.
let's just go with this, and yeah, it was nice. It was
And you said the dog's name was McNugget.
McNugget. Yep.
McNugget saves the day.
Yeah, I guess down in Milwaukee they have like 4 or 5 different therapy dogs that come through.
They
Yeah.
have more than I think. One nurse told me the last time I was there was like over 100.
Oh wow,
Wow.
okay.
I think is what they said.
Okay,
I
yeah.
could be totally wrong, but I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure that's what they said. Yeah.
So yeah, we were pretty grateful for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So really, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like since the spring and even when some of those symptoms started to develop before the shunt, needing to having that for surgery, ever since then, it's almost like you've been on a fight to get your daughter back.
Mhm.
It's like she
I mean, she had the revision, then she was back in the hospital. We were there for, I don't even know how long the second time.
Like a week and a half, 2 weeks.
And then you think you're good, and then you're back. And then you think you're good, and then you're back. And it was just a lot of being in the hospital. And
one of the times too, like the neurosurgery, like all of them got together and we're like, something's not working. Like we need to figure out what to do to try to help with this, because the shunt keeps malfunctioning, clogging, like all the things that could go wrong, I think did with her shunt. And so they kind of collaborated, like, what can we do? Because each time she would go basically unresponsive, she was getting worse and worse as far as her functioning went. And they're afraid that if it happened again, you know, it could be fatal, or
that
it
was
could
more
be.
fluid building up and like pushing on her brain
right.
every time it happened.
So they kind of all collaborated and said that they wanted to do like a craniotomy in the back of her head and just go in and kind of open up the tissue and cause like an opening. And they wanted to put a stent in just to keep it open, but because she has no cerebellum, they weren't able to do it.
That was a long
So that was
surgery. She wasn't down
told-
there.
Yeah, I was actually sick myself
I
at
was
that time.
I was down there, just me and her.
Mm-hmm.
Was it 13 days? I know you came down once you were able to for the weekend. But like, it was just me and her. And I remember this was the time after the one we were just talking about. And like she wasn't good again, and I brought her down, and they found that her valve was clogged with blood. And they were like, well, we should put a new valve in, we should be good to go. And, you know, it's just me and her. And they brought her down right back up to the neuro floor after that. And then within a couple of hours after that surgery, she was declining again. Like she was like unresponsive. And
You kept telling the nurse something's not right.
yeah, I was telling them like,
And they're like,
that's why I
it's
wish
just
she was there, because she
anesthesia.
pushes harder than I do. I was like, this isn't right. This isn't right. And finally a neuro resident came by and was like, how long has she been like this? And I was like, oh, a couple hours. And within minutes, he was like doing a tap on her shunt where he like sticks a needle in him, gets fluid out, and he's like, she needs to go back into surgery. And so like you're literally down there, you think everything's good, you know, they put a new valve in, that was the problem. And then within hours, she was right back into surgery. And then, so that I think they externalized her on that one again too.
They did.
So then we were back in the ICU, which it's not fun. I mean,
There's
it's not
no
fun being in the
windows
hospital.
there.
Yeah. But then like when she was talking about the craniotomy,
That was after she was externalized.
yeah, but that was me. It was just me and her yet. And they're bringing her into surgery at like, it was like 2 or 3 in the afternoon. They're like, a couple hours, should be fine. You know, I'm in the waiting room by myself. I'm getting updates. She texting her like, oh, you know, the nurse updated me. It's going well. I was getting updates like every hour, and then eventually I wasn't getting updates. And it was going from 2 hours to 3 hours to 4 hours to 5 hours. I think it was, what, a 9-hour surgery? And eventually I get a text, and it's almost midnight. And they're like, surgery's done. Please meet Dr. Elsa, who's her main surgeon, in whatever waiting room. And I was like, that's weird. Normally they just come out and just talk to you. And I'm like, okay, this is weird. And I see her, and she just looks like the surgeon. She just looked like life, like just exhausted. And I mean, in hindsight, she probably was just from a 9-hour surgery. Right. But I mean, she was telling me all these things, and I'm like, I wish Ashley was there, because I'm like, I don't know what any of this means. Like, is she okay? Is she not okay? Like, and then I had, was it the resident or on the ICU floor?
It was the intensivist on the ICU floor.
I had her call and she's like, I'm not a neurosurgeon either, but I can kind of tell you what I'm getting from this. Because I wanted her to have an idea of what was going on. Yeah. And that's when they said, you know, the craniotomy went well. They weren't able to do everything they wanted to do.
And they found like a couple different areas of like tissue that the neurosurgeon has never seen before. And so she biopsied them, and now we know they came back. They weren't cancerous or anything, but she still doesn't know what they are. And they decided just not to go through with like figuring out what it is, because what would we do with it? Like, we kind of agreed. We're like, okay. And so she has she's just unique.
Yeah.
But
one of the things that Paige was filling me in on was that you guys have come up with a fun name for the spots. Yeah. And so I don't know if you wanted to share a little bit about how you came to that name, what that name is, and how you've handled that inside.
What do we call your spots, Paisley?
Are they ladybug spots?
When she was like even just like a little baby, we just like, we wanted to know, like, figure out like how we can go about explaining it to people. And then we were like, how do you explain it to kids? How do we explain it to Noah? You know, and we're like, let's call them her ladybug spots, because they kind of look like ladybug spots. And that happened like the first time when she was like a baby in the hospital. And I remember like my coworkers started saying like ladybug power and, you know, like stuff like that. And it's just kind of what we do. And now kids often are like, what are those? And we're like, oh, she was born with them. They're her ladybug spots. And a lot of them are like, oh, cool, you know, but and it's just kind of what we go. And my mom and I even have these little ladybug tattoos, and you'll see like ladybugs. They're more in the kitchen, but like we have ladybugs everywhere. And even like, it's weird, but like on our bad days, we will randomly see ladybugs, like real ones, pop up. And it's just like, it'll be winter and you'll see this little like ladybug when it's like her bad day, and you're like, okay,
I remember like starting a new job like years ago. She was still just a baby, and I was really nervous. It was like my first day. And I don't know how, but there was like a painted rock, like a ladybug, like at the desk where I was like, that would have been my desk. Like I sent her a picture. I'm like, what are the odds?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're the one that said that you are the voice that says it's going to be fine. It's almost like you're getting your own reminders that it's going to be fine. Sometimes fine has a different definition. Like fine might be relative, but yeah, that's really cool. Yeah. And so how has that, I'm assuming that as she's getting older, those conversations shift a little bit, and you might be there at 7, how have you guys navigated some of those and helping her embrace that?
I think like this year was probably one of the first years she started to kind of more so like notice them. I feel like before they were just I don't know as if she like really realized they were unique. And this year, like I remember like one day she like pointed at one of the little spots on her arms and she goes, I wish I didn't have these. Are they gonna go away? And I said, well, you were born with them and you'll have them and they'll grow with you as you grow. And I said, and they're beautiful and they make you unique and special and it's something you have that others don't. And she's like, you're right. So, right now she embraces them and loves them and we hope she always will. And you have a lot of like her friends will even be like, I love your spots, and it's
something I would get nervous about is just like, as she gets older, like kids, eventually some kids get mean, like it's part of life. And I'm like, one of my biggest like concerns was like how she'd be treated as she got older. And like Noah, he's 2 years older, he plays baseball. We're at the baseball field all summer long. And like all his friends, like they don't even see her anything other than Noah's sister now. I remember like at first, she'd get a look or two, but like all like they took her in, they embrace her. Like they don't see her any different than anybody else. And then like even like this past summer, like going to baseball games, like a lot of the kids have little sisters and they just come get Paisley right away. Like, let's go to the playground, let's go play. Like they all want to like just help her and take care of her. And like they don't see her any differently. She's part of the group. And I mean,
even this summer, like she's doing really well with like walking and everything now, but when this summer she really had her struggles, like she couldn't walk and she was really unsteady and to go play with these girls she would really struggle, and they would like hold her hand and like help her walk and kind of sit on the ground and play with her if they knew that's what she could do. It was really really cool seeing them just adjust to her.
Before they even knew she could go to the playground, like one of the first weekends, like one of the girls came up, she had like this big briefcase full of coloring books and crayons. She's like, we can color the whole time. Like, it's fine. Like, let's sit on a blanket and color. And then eventually we were like, you guys could probably go to the playground. And like both like the girls were like, well, we'll hold her hands. And like they were just, I don't know, they wanted to include her and everything. And it was nice.
Super
it restores a little of my faith in humanity.
Yeah.
Like when you, like you said, you can see kids grow up and become mean. And then on the flip side of that, you see kids that just lean in and fully embrace and say, if you can't make it to the playground, we'll bring the fun to you. Like, it's good to, I need that reminder.
Yeah.
Because I think the older I get, the more cynical I become.
For sure.
Because you see the realities of sometimes this world's cruel.
Yeah.
And we got a lot of that too, especially when she was a baby. Like I remember just like going to the grocery store and there was one lady that was like, what is wrong with your baby? And I said, absolutely nothing. I was like, not worth my time, right? So I was like, and then
your parents are not proud of you for asking this question.
Yeah. And there was one time too, we were at like, they're in Appleton, they have, which is really close to us. There's like a kids, what is it called?
It's called the Building for Kids.
Yeah. It's just like a fun little place. And we took Noah there with her when she was just really little. And I was holding her. And a lady came up and poked her face and was like, what is that? And I was like, she was just born with them. No big deal. Went on my way. And I was like, wow. And then another time I was at the grocery store, someone asked me, he goes, does she have the measles? And I was like, and at that time, like that really rubbed me wrong. And I grabbed a piece of paper out of my purse and I wrote her, neurocutaneous melanocytosis down. I'm like, look it up. And I kept walking because I'm like, you are not worth my time, buddy.
Nope.
Like, I was like, how can you be so like rude? I don't know. Like, I understand people are curious and you just say, like we've also had though some come up and be like, I love her spots. What is that? Like just curiosity. And I love to educate people otherwise.
Same thing. Like I tell everybody, like, I would rather you just come ask me. Like, I mean, don't be like rude about it, but be like, what does she have? Even if you just said that, like, what does she have? Like, I'd be like, I'll tell you. I mean, But like just being dad too, like I don't know if it's just me, but like I feel like I notice everybody that like looks like, and then people, they don't give bad looks, but you just notice, like you go to the grocery store and there's like little kids and you can see them just kind of looking. And I mean, I don't know if it's just me being protective of her, but like, I mean, there are people that will come up to them to be like, what does she have? And you tell them and they're like, oh, okay. I mean, but I don't know. We just, I don't know. Don't ever want her to like be hurt because of something she can't control.
Yeah.
And so I'm always kind of just watching out.
Well, give us an update on where Paisley is now and like what life looks like in the day to day, and where kind of the prognosis looks, at least for what you know today.
So she's been doing a lot of physical therapy and working really hard with all her therapies, trying to get stronger. And she has been doing great. Like last week at therapy, she ran with the therapist and that was like her highlight. And she came home and she said, Dad, guess what I did? And he's like, what? And he's like, she's like, I ran today. And, that was just awesome. And I think since like her last surgery, she's really like her personality came back after that one.
Yeah, she's been way more herself.
So that was really nice. And then it was just getting her like stronger. So she's now walking pretty much on her own and able to run a little bit. And I mean, she falls here and there.
Today.
Yep. And
just personality-wise, she's just how like after the first few surgeries, you could just still tell she wasn't herself, and like now, I mean, it's going on over a month, and like even like the little things, like in the mornings, I'm usually the first one down here getting ready to go to work, and like I'll be in the kitchen, and I can hear her upstairs, Dad, shut your eyes. And like, okay, and then she comes down, and I have to see what she's wearing that day, and tell her how beautiful she looks, and it's just like all that stuff is like it's like normal again. Like just everything is normal.
I mean, there's always like any given day could be a change with her, and that's super scary. And it's been hard for us to like go do things because it's like she could be good now and then in an hour she's not feeling good. So it's like that's been really hard. But then like the last week and a half, she's been starting to have weakness in her hands, and we're like, okay. But she's feeling good. She's not in pain. She, personality's still there. So we're like, we see her neurosurgeon actually tomorrow. So we are going to mention it to him, but could be potentially something going on. But it's not getting worse. It's not causing pain. So we're like, just kind of feeling it out, trying to help her with like using her hands a little more and stuff like that. But, so yeah, every day can be a new day. So like we don't know, and we were told she most likely wouldn't live to 2, and she's 7. So we're just embracing that, and we've always said like we had I think it was like a neurosurgeon said that you celebrate the good days and you get through the bad days, and we've kind of just done that since we heard that, and that's kind of how we do it.
Yeah.
So.
Awesome.
But right now she's our rock star.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to wrap up with one follow-up question for each of you. And Dad, I'll let you go first. I'm giving you a chance to.
Okay.
Same question. What makes you most proud to be Paisley's dad?
I think just like how hard she fights, even when she doesn't want to. Like being in the hospital with her, since in and out since March, like you see her and there's a lot of days when you can just tell like her spirit's just gone. Like she doesn't want to be there. She's just miserable, but eventually she finds the strength to just pull herself through it and get out of it. And like, we help her, we talk her up and try to lift her spirits, but like she's the only one that can really make her like do the things they want her to do. So they're good with her getting out of the hospital. And I mean, like she's 7 and she's had 9 brain surgeries?
10 total.
10 total. Like, and the fact that like she's still able to just be here and be our Paisley, like that strength, like she doesn't get it from me. Like, I mean, I feel like I'd be crying about it yet if I had 10 brain surgeries, but she just keeps going. She keeps chugging along, and I mean, we're just proud of how strong she is.
Yeah. Ashley, what makes you most proud to be your mom?
I'd have to kind of agree with Josh. Her resilience, like I feel like is put in these situations where she almost passed away on us and she made it through it and she just keeps fighting. Like she doesn't stop. Like she has, like her hands are weak. She keeps trying. She keeps trying to, use them and get them stronger. But also like her resilience with just like her knowing about her disease, because we've always been really honest with her about it, and like her questions and like how she just rolls with life. She's just amazing.
At Go Shout Love, we do amazing things for amazing families with kids on rare medical journeys. Each month we shout love for families through the sale of creative apparel inspired by the kids. This month's Celebrate the Good Days design is inspired by Paisley, a silly and caring girl from Wisconsin who fiercely lives out each day while enjoying every chance to sing, dance, and love people. Every purchase in October will go to help with the travel expenses needed for Paisley's multiple monthly out-of-town appointments. Visit our website at goshout.love to support Paisley through the purchase of a t-shirt, hat, tank top, hoodie, or other items.